Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, 1981. A 5-year-old girl vanishes from a crowded mall play area in broad daylight. For 44 years, her family searches desperately. Police find no trace, the case goes cold. Then in 2025, construction workers make a shocking discovery that leads to a DNA breakthrough. Jennifer Malloy's remains are finally identified. Her family gets the closure they've waited decades for. And a decades-old mystery is finally solved. How did modern forensic science solve a case that stumped investigators for over 4 decades? Stay with us as we uncover this heartbreaking but resolved cold case. Hello and welcome to the DNA Archives, where we dive deep into cold cases, missing persons, and the mysteries that DNA finally solves. If you're drawn to stories where truth prevails and justice is served, even decades later, you're in the right place. Please hit the like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe so you never miss a case. Now let's go back to where this tragic story began. November 21st, 1981. Riverside Mall, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It was a Saturday afternoon, the weekend before Thanksgiving. The mall was packed with families doing early holiday shopping. The weather outside was bitter cold, snow flurries dusting the parking lot, which made the heated mall a popular destination. Among the shoppers that day was Patricia Malloy, a 29-year-old single mother who worked as a secretary at a law firm downtown. She had brought her daughter Jennifer, 5 years old, with dark brown hair cut in a bob, freckles across her nose, and a quiet, gentle nature. Jennifer wore burgundy corduroy pants that day, a cream-colored turtleneck sweater, and brown boots her mother had just bought her the week before. Patricia also had her older son Ryan with her. He was 9 years old, responsible for his age, always watching out for his little sister. The 3 of them had come to the mall to look at Christmas decorations and maybe pick up a few small gifts. Money was tight, but Patricia wanted to give her kids something special. They had been walking through the mall for about an hour, stopping at store windows, admiring the holiday displays. Jennifer was fascinated by the giant Christmas tree in the center court. It was at least 20 feet tall, covered in gold and silver ornaments that sparkled under the lights. "Mom, can I play for a little bit?" Jennifer asked, pointing to the play area near the tree. The play area was simple by today's standards, just a carpeted section with a small slide, a few riding toys shaped like animals, and some building blocks. It was surrounded by benches where parents could sit and rest while their children played. Patricia looked at her watch. It was almost 3 o'clock. They still had time before the bus home. "Okay, sweetie, but just for 15 minutes, then we need to catch our bus." Jennifer's face lit up. She ran toward the play area, her boots clomping on the tile floor. Patricia sat on a bench near the entrance. She had a clear view of the entire area. Ryan sat beside her looking at a toy catalog they had picked up at one of the stores. Jennifer took off her coat, left it on the bench with her mother, and went straight for the slide. She climbed up, slid down, giggled, climbed up again. Patricia watched her, smiling, grateful for these simple moments of happiness. The mall was loud. Christmas music played over the speakers. People walked by with shopping bags. Children laughed and shouted. Around 3:15, Patricia dug through her purse looking for the bus schedule. She wanted to make sure they didn't miss the next one. She looked down for maybe 2 minutes, finding the folded paper at the bottom of her bag. When she looked up, Jennifer was gone. Patricia stood immediately, scanned the play area. Maybe Jennifer had moved to the building blocks. She walked closer, checked behind the slide, looked around the riding toys. No Jennifer. Patricia's stomach dropped. She called out, "Jennifer, where are you, baby?" No answer. She walked through the play area, asking other children if they had seen a little girl in burgundy pants. They stared at her blankly, kept playing. Ryan jumped up, started helping his mother search. They checked every corner, behind every bench. Jennifer was nowhere. Patricia ran to a nearby store, asked the clerk to call security. Her voice was shaking, her hands trembling. Within minutes, mall security arrived. A man in his 50s named Frank DeLuca. He immediately radioed for backup. What was she wearing? Burgundy corduroy pants, cream sweater, brown boots. She's 5 years old, dark hair. Frank spoke into his radio. "All units, we have a missing child. Burgundy pants, cream sweater, 5 years old, secure all exits immediately." Security guards rushed to every door, stood at entrances, started checking faces of everyone leaving. An announcement came over the mall speakers. "Attention shoppers, we are looking for a missing child. 5-year-old girl, burgundy pants, cream sweater. If you see her, please bring her to the security office immediately." The mall seemed to freeze. Parents grabbed their own children tighter. Store employees came out to help search. Patricia stood in the center court screaming Jennifer's name, her voice raw and desperate. Ryan held his mother's coat, tears streaming down his face. "This is my fault. I should have been watching her." Patricia grabbed his shoulders. "No, baby, this is not your fault." But even as she said it, guilt consumed her. She had looked away just for 2 minutes and her daughter had vanished. By 4 o'clock, Pittsburgh police arrived. They sealed off the mall, questioned everyone, checked security footage from the few cameras that existed back in 1981. The footage was grainy, black and white, but it showed Jennifer playing in the area at 3:10. At 3:14, a figure approached her. The quality was too poor to see details, just a dark shape. At 3:16, Jennifer was gone, and she was never seen again. The first week was a living nightmare. Police interviewed every person who had been at the mall that day, every shopper, every employee, every security guard. They showed Jennifer's photo on local news stations. It appeared in newspapers across Pennsylvania. Tips flooded in from people claiming they had seen her. One woman said she saw a little girl matching Jennifer's description, getting into a brown van in the parking lot around 3:30. Police tracked down every brown van registered in Allegheny County, interviewed the owners, searched the vehicles. None of them led anywhere. Another caller said they saw a man carrying a crying child through the parking garage, but they couldn't remember what the man looked like, couldn't give any useful description. The grainy security footage was analyzed by FBI experts. They tried to enhance it, to identify the figure that approached Jennifer, but the technology in 1981 was primitive. All they could determine was that it appeared to be an adult, possibly male, wearing dark clothing. That description fit hundreds of people who had been at the mall that day. Investigators focused on known offenders. They interviewed every registered sex offender within 50 miles of Pittsburgh. They questioned mall employees with criminal records, construction workers who had been doing renovations in the building. Everyone had alibis, everyone passed polygraph tests, everyone came up clean. By December, 1 month after Jennifer disappeared, the case was already going cold. There were no solid leads, no physical evidence, no body. Patricia stopped working. She couldn't focus, couldn't function. She spent her days at the police station asking for updates. "Any news? Anything at all?" The answer was always the same: "We're still investigating, Mrs. Malloy. We haven't given up." But Patricia could see it in their eyes. They thought Jennifer was dead. Ryan blamed himself. No matter how many times Patricia told him it wasn't his fault, he carried the guilt. He stopped playing with friends, his grades dropped, he became withdrawn and angry. By 1983, 2 years had passed. The family had fallen apart. Patricia developed severe depression. She was on medication, seeing a therapist twice a week, barely able to get out of bed most days. She kept Jennifer's room exactly as it was, her clothes still in the dresser, her toys still on the shelf, her bed still made with the pink flowered sheets she loved. Every night Patricia would sit in that room, hold Jennifer's favorite stuffed rabbit, and cry until she fell asleep on the floor. Ryan became a troubled teenager. He started getting into fights at school, skipping classes, hanging out with the wrong crowd. By 16, he had been arrested twice for vandalism. Patricia tried to help him, but she could barely help herself. In 1987, 6 years after Jennifer disappeared, Patricia remarried. A kind man named Joseph who understood her pain and never tried to replace Jennifer's memory. Joseph helped stabilize the family. He got Ryan into counseling, helped Patricia find purpose again. But the grief never left. It was always there, a shadow over everything. Every November 21st, the anniversary of Jennifer's disappearance, Patricia would bake a chocolate cake, Jennifer's favorite. She would light candles, set a place at the table, and sit there for hours talking to her daughter as if she could hear. "I'm still looking for you, baby. I'll never stop, wherever you are. I hope you know how much I love you." Ryan grew up and moved away. He couldn't stay in Pittsburgh. The city held too many painful memories. He joined the military in 1990, served for 8 years. It gave him structure and discipline, helped him deal with the trauma. But he never stopped thinking about his sister, never stopped feeling guilty for not protecting her. In 1995, Patricia received a call from a detective. They had found remains of a young girl in West Virginia. Could it be Jennifer? Patricia's heart stopped. She rushed to provide dental records, waited agonizing days for results. The remains weren't Jennifer. It happened 3 more times over the years, remains found, hope raised, hope crushed. Each time, Patricia died a little more inside. By the year 2000, 19 years had passed. Patricia was 48 years old. Her hair had gone gray, her face lined with decades of grief. She joined a support group for parents of missing children. It helped to talk to people who understood, who carried the same unbearable weight. She became an advocate. She spoke at events, pushed for better resources for missing children cases, for more funding for cold case investigations. If Jennifer's case couldn't be solved, maybe she could help solve someone else's. Ryan came home for visits occasionally. He had married, had 2 daughters of his own. He named his youngest Jennifer in honor of the sister he lost. He told his daughters about their aunt, showed them photos, made sure Jennifer's memory stayed alive. In 2010, almost 30 years after Jennifer disappeared, the lead detective on the case retired. He called Patricia before he left, told her he was sorry he couldn't bring her daughter home, that he had tried everything. Patricia thanked him, told him she knew he had done his best. But after she hung up, she sat in Jennifer's room and sobbed because she knew what retirement meant. It meant the case would be filed away, forgotten, buried under newer cases with better chances of being solved. By 2020, 39 years had passed. Patricia was 68 years old. Joseph had passed away from a heart attack 2 years earlier. She lived alone now in a small apartment. She had downsized after Joseph died, but she took Jennifer's things with her: the stuffed rabbit, the photos, the clothes. Ryan called her every week, worried about her living alone, but Patricia insisted she was fine. She wasn't fine, she was just waiting for an answer that might never come. And then in the spring of 2025, everything changed. April 2025, a construction crew was demolishing an old warehouse on the outskirts of Pittsburgh, about 8 miles from where Riverside Mall used to stand. The mall itself had been torn down in 2003, replaced by a shopping complex. But the surrounding industrial area remained largely unchanged. The warehouse had been abandoned since the early 1990s. It was scheduled to be demolished to make way for new apartment buildings. On April 15th, workers using heavy machinery to break through the concrete foundation made a disturbing discovery. Buried beneath 3 feet of concrete and dirt, wrapped in a deteriorated plastic tarp, were skeletal remains. The crew immediately stopped work, contacted Pittsburgh police. Within hours, the site was swarmed with investigators and forensic teams. The remains were carefully excavated, transported to the Allegheny County Medical Examiner's office for analysis. Initial examination determined the remains belonged to a child, approximately 4 to 6 years old, had been buried for several decades. Scraps of fabric were found with the remains: burgundy corduroy material, cream-colored wool fibers, fragments of small brown leather. Dr. Helen Vasquez, the lead forensic anthropologist, immediately recognized the significance. She pulled up cold case files from the early 1980s, searching for missing children, searching for matches to the clothing description. When she found Jennifer Malloy's case, her heart sank. Burgundy corduroy pants, cream sweater, brown boots missing since November 1981 from a mall just 8 miles away. Dr. Vasquez contacted Detective Marcus Webb, who headed the cold case unit. She told him what they had found, what she suspected. Detective Webb pulled Jennifer's file. It was thick with decades of dead ends, false leads, and heartbreak. He called Patricia Malloy, his hand shaking as he dialed the number. "Mrs. Malloy, this is Detective Marcus Webb from Pittsburgh PD. I need to speak with you about Jennifer's case." Patricia's voice was cautious, tired. She had received these calls before. "We found remains. We need dental records. It's never her." "What is it?" Detective Webb chose his words carefully. "We found remains at a construction site. A child, approximately the right age. The clothing matches what Jennifer was wearing." Patricia felt the room spin. She sat down heavily on her couch. "We need a DNA sample from you to confirm identity. Can you come to the station tomorrow?" Patricia whispered yes, then hung up and called Ryan. Ryan drove through the night from his home in Ohio, arrived at his mother's apartment at dawn. Together they went to the police station. Patricia gave a DNA sample, a simple cheek swab that would answer 44 years of questions. The waiting was unbearable. Patricia couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. She sat in Jennifer's old room holding the stuffed rabbit, praying for strength to handle whatever truth was coming. Ryan stayed with her. He took time off work. He wasn't going to let his mother face this alone. 3 weeks later, on May 8, 2025, Detective Webb called. "Mrs. Malloy, the DNA results are back. It's a match. The remains we found are Jennifer." Patricia made a sound that was half gasp, half sob. After 44 years, she finally knew. Her daughter hadn't run away, hadn't been taken across the country. She had been 8 miles away this entire time. 8 miles buried under concrete, alone in the darkness. Detective Webb continued gently. Based on the forensic evidence, we believe Jennifer died shortly after she was taken. The cause of death was asphyxiation. She didn't suffer long. It was small comfort, but it was something. Patricia asked the question she had been dreading. Do you know who did this? Detective Webb paused. We're investigating. The warehouse where she was found was owned by a company in 1981. We're tracking down former employees. We're re-interviewing witnesses. We're using every tool we have. The investigation moved quickly now that they had a crime scene. Forensic teams scoured every inch of the warehouse foundation. They found additional evidence: a metal button that didn't match Jennifer's clothing, a cigarette butt preserved in the concrete. DNA was extracted from the cigarette. It was degraded but usable, run through every database available. No immediate match, but investigators weren't giving up. They pulled employee records from the company that owned the warehouse in 1981, cross-referenced them with people who had been at the mall the day Jennifer disappeared. One name appeared on both lists: a maintenance worker named Carl Pritchard. In 1981, Carl Pritchard was 34 years old. He worked part-time at Riverside Mall doing janitorial and maintenance work. He also worked at the warehouse doing repairs and upkeep for the storage facility. When Jennifer disappeared, Pritchard had been questioned briefly. He said he was working in a back hallway during the time she vanished. He didn't see anything. His alibi was weak, but there was no evidence against him. He was cleared. Now, 44 years later, detectives wanted to talk to him again. They tracked him down to a nursing home in Erie, Pennsylvania. He was 78 years old, suffering from advanced Parkinson's disease. Detective Webb and his team drove to Erie, sat down with Pritchard in the common room of the facility. Pritchard's hands shook. His voice was weak, but his mind seemed clear. Mr. Pritchard, we need to talk to you about Jennifer Malloy. Pritchard's face went pale. He looked down at his trembling hands. I knew this day would come, he whispered. Detective Webb leaned forward. You want to tell us what happened? Pritchard closed his eyes, tears streaming down his weathered face. I didn't mean to hurt her. I just wanted to talk to her. She reminded me of my daughter. I lost custody of my daughter that year. I wasn't thinking straight. He confessed to everything: how he had approached Jennifer in the play area, told her he had lost a puppy and needed help finding it, how she had trustingly followed him through a back service corridor, how he had taken her to his car in the employee parking area. He said he panicked when she started crying for her mother. He covered her mouth to keep her quiet. He held on too long. She stopped breathing. He drove her body to the warehouse where he worked, buried her in a shallow grave, then poured concrete over it during a scheduled foundation repair. The evidence matched his confession. The cigarette DNA was tested against a sample from Pritchard. It was a match. After 44 years, Jennifer Malloy's killer had been found. Carl Pritchard was arrested on May 12, 2025, charged with kidnapping and murder. Despite his age and deteriorating health, prosecutors determined he was mentally competent to stand trial. The case moved quickly through the legal system. Pritchard's confession, combined with DNA evidence and forensic analysis, left no room for doubt. His public defender advised him to plead guilty in exchange for avoiding the death penalty. Given his age and health, he likely wouldn't survive more than a few years in prison anyway. Pritchard agreed. He said he wanted to spare Jennifer's family the pain of a trial, that he had carried the guilt for 44 years and was ready to face justice. The plea hearing was scheduled for July 2025. Patricia and Ryan were both present in the courtroom. Patricia sat in the front row, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Ryan sat beside her, one arm around his mother's shoulders. When Pritchard was brought in, shackled and in a wheelchair, Patricia stared at him with an intensity that made everyone in the courtroom uncomfortable. This was the man who had stolen her daughter, who had buried her under concrete, who had let her search for 44 years knowing exactly where Jennifer was. The judge asked Pritchard how he pleaded to the charges. Pritchard's voice was barely audible. Guilty, Your Honor, guilty to all charges. The judge accepted the plea, scheduled sentencing for August. Before the hearing ended, the judge asked if the victim's family wanted to make a statement. Patricia stood slowly, walked to the podium, her hands gripping the wood to keep them from shaking. She looked directly at Pritchard, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. You took my baby from me. You stole 44 years of my life. I spent every single day wondering where she was, if she was alive, if she was scared, if she was calling for me. Pritchard kept his head down, couldn't meet her eyes. Patricia continued. You let me suffer. You watched the news reports. You saw the flyers. You knew we were searching, and you said nothing. You are not just a killer, you are a coward. The courtroom was silent except for the sound of Patricia's voice. But I want you to know something. Jennifer was loved. She was deeply, completely loved, and she will be remembered long after you're gone and forgotten. Patricia walked back to her seat. Ryan stood and hugged her, both of them crying. In August, Pritchard was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He was immediately transferred to a medical facility within the state prison system. Given his health conditions, experts predicted he would not survive more than 2 years. Patricia didn't care how long he lived. What mattered was that he had been caught, that Jennifer's name had been cleared of any suggestion she had run away. The world now knew the truth. Jennifer Malloy was an innocent child who had been murdered, and her killer had finally been held accountable. After the sentencing, Patricia worked with the medical examiner's office to arrange for Jennifer's remains to be released. She planned a funeral, the funeral she should have been able to have 44 years ago. On September 14, 2025, Jennifer Malloy was laid to rest at Mount Hope Cemetery in Pittsburgh. The service was held at the same church where Patricia had prayed every Sunday for decades, the church where she had lit candles and begged God to bring her daughter home. Hundreds of people attended. Friends, family, members of the support group Patricia had joined, police officers who had worked on the case. Ryan gave a eulogy, his voice breaking as he spoke about his little sister, about the guilt he had carried, about the forgiveness he was finally learning to give himself. Jennifer was 5 years old, but she changed so many lives. She taught us about hope, about perseverance, about never giving up on the people we love. Patricia sat in the front row, holding the stuffed rabbit Jennifer had loved, the one she had kept for 44 years. When it was time to lower the casket, Patricia placed the rabbit inside, whispered goodbye one final time. After the funeral, Patricia felt something she hadn't felt in decades: peace. Not happiness, the wound was too deep for that, but peace. The kind that comes from knowing the truth, from having a place to visit, from being able to say goodbye. She visited Jennifer's grave every week, brought flowers, sat on the bench nearby, talked to her daughter about everything she had missed. "I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you, baby, but you're home now. You're finally home." Ryan came to visit whenever he could. He brought his daughters, Jennifer's nieces. They left drawings and flowers at the grave. The case received national media attention. It became a symbol of the importance of never giving up on cold cases, of the power of modern forensic science. Patricia was invited to speak at conferences. She shared Jennifer's story, advocated for more resources for cold case investigations, for better training in forensic DNA analysis. She told audiences that even after 44 years, justice is possible, closure is possible, and families should never stop hoping. Jennifer's case also led to policy changes. The Pennsylvania state legislature passed a bill requiring all unidentified remains to be entered into DNA databases within 60 days. The bill was named Jennifer's Law, ensuring her legacy would help other families find answers. Carl Pritchard died in prison in March 2026. Less than a year after his sentencing, he passed away from complications related to Parkinson's disease. Patricia was notified of his death. She felt nothing. No satisfaction, no relief, just a quiet acknowledgement that a chapter had closed. What mattered now was Jennifer's memory, not his. It has been several months since Jennifer Malloy was finally laid to rest. Several months since Patricia got the answers she had waited 44 years to receive. The pain hasn't disappeared. Grief like that never fully goes away, but there is something different now, something that wasn't there before. Closure. Patricia still visits Jennifer's grave every week. She brings fresh flowers, sits on the bench nearby, talks to her daughter about her day, about Ryan's family, about how the world has changed. She tells Jennifer about the laws that have been passed in her name, about the families who have been helped because of her story. Your life mattered, baby. Even though it was too short, even though it ended in tragedy, your life had meaning and purpose. Patricia has found a new sense of mission. She works closely with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. She mentors other parents who are searching for their children. She tells them to never give up, to push for DNA testing, to demand that their cases stay open. She tells them that even after decades, even when it seems impossible, the truth can still emerge. Ryan has healed in ways he never thought possible. The guilt he carried for 44 years has finally begun to lift. He understands now that he was just a child, that what happened to Jennifer was not his fault, that evil doesn't need a reason or an opportunity. He has become an advocate too. He speaks at schools about stranger danger, about the importance of vigilance, about how quickly tragedy can strike. His daughters are now teenagers. They volunteer with missing children organizations. They wear bracelets with Jennifer's name engraved on them. They never met their aunt, but they carry her memory forward. They make sure she is never forgotten. The warehouse where Jennifer was found has been completely demolished. The land has been turned into a memorial garden, a quiet place with benches and flowers and a fountain. At the center of the garden stands a bronze plaque that reads, "In memory of Jennifer Malloy, 1976 to 1981, and all children taken too soon. May we never stop searching for the truth." Patricia attended the dedication ceremony. She stood beside the mayor of Pittsburgh, beside Detective Webb, beside Dr. Vasquez, who had identified Jennifer's remains. She thanked them all for never giving up, for using science and determination to bring her daughter home. The case has had a ripple effect across Pennsylvania and beyond. Cold case units have received increased funding. DNA databases have expanded. New protocols have been implemented. Jennifer's law requires that all unidentified remains found in Pennsylvania be tested within 60 days and entered into national databases. It also mandates that cold cases be reviewed every 5 years using the latest forensic technology. The law has already helped solve 3 other cases. 3 other families have gotten answers they thought they would never receive. Patricia knows that Jennifer would be proud of that. Proud that her story has helped others, that something good has come from something so terrible. Detective Webb retired in late 2025, but before he left, he visited Patricia one final time. He told her that Jennifer's case was the most important work he had ever done, that bringing her home had given his career meaning. Patricia thanked him, told him he had given her something she thought was impossible: peace. The investigation into whether there were other victims has continued. Pritchard's confession mentioned only Jennifer, but detectives have been reviewing other missing children cases from the 1980s. So far, no connections have been found, but the investigation remains open. Patricia hopes there are no other victims, but if there are, she hopes their families get the same closure she finally received. She knows what it's like to live without answers, to exist in a state of constant uncertainty, to grieve without being able to let go. Now, when she lies down at night, she doesn't lie awake wondering where Jennifer is. She knows. Jennifer is at rest. She is remembered. She is loved. DNA doesn't forget, even when decades pass, even when concrete is poured and buildings rise and fall, even when hope seems lost. DNA remembers. And because of that, families like the Malloys can find peace, can find closure, can finally say goodbye. Jennifer's story is a reminder that no case is ever truly hopeless, that science and perseverance can uncover the truth, and that a mother's love never dies. If this story moved you, please take a moment to hit the like button. It helps us continue bringing stories like Jennifer's to light, stories that deserve to be told, stories that need to be remembered. Leave a comment below, share your thoughts, tell us how cases like this impact you. We read every single one and we're grateful for this community. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the DNA Archives. We're committed to bringing you more cold cases, more mysteries solved through DNA, more stories of justice, truth, and the families who never give up. Thank you for watching, thank you for caring, and remember, the truth is always worth searching for, no matter how long it takes. We'll see you in the next case.